have a great time, and I tell you, I am very, very happy, especially because as of late, some of the things we go through, I'm so happy to be among friends. I really am. This opportunity will encourage me, I'm sure, more than it will encourage you and inspire you. It is so wonderful to be in an arena, a hockey arena, much less where the Road Warriors play. Here we are in an arena filled up with thousands of sisters who are fired up and filled with faith. It's good to be with you. And if you're not fired up and filled with faith, you can take just a couple of seconds and ask God to do it for you, because He will. He'll fill you up. And why He will do it is He needs you. Our world needs you. Our country needs you. Our culture needs you. With an anchor that holds people who are hurting today, they can look to you and they can ask you, from where does your strength come? How does that anchor hold? And you can answer them. It's by being filled up with passionate faith. And we'll get to talk about that today. But strong and steady, ladies, anchored in faith. And that's why you're here today. And it's no accident that you're here today. Here today at this exact time, sitting in this exact spot. I don't believe there's any such thing as a coincidence as to how we all got here today together. So open up your heart to what God has for you in this extraordinary women's conference, because you are extraordinary. South Carolina is a perfect place to be for this too, with your beautiful shoreline and warm weather and peaches. And I think I saw the biggest peach in the history of the universe on I-85 yesterday. Like it. You know why it's so perfect to be here too, though? You know your state motto in South Carolina is, while I breathe, I hope. And that kind of encapsulates the spirit of why we're here today. And it's more than just words on a state seal. It is a providential acknowledgement. It's a declaration of how we must approach life, how life was intended to be lived. While I breathe, I hope. And life is driven by hope. To reject hope is to reject life. Merely passing our days away without hope is not living at all. It's not why you were created. That's just merely existing. And God put you on this earth to do more than just merely exist. What we're here for, until we all meet again in the great by and by, which of course, that's going to be just wonderful. That'll be great. But while we're here, you know, we were expected to set out to and to accomplish much, to live, to grow, to thrive, to produce, to affect other people's lives in a positive way. That's why we were created. And we're given a choice whether we're going to do it or not. We can choose to just go through the motions and kind of, drag ourselves out of bed in the morning and get through the day. And we can make another choice, though, and that is to consciously choose to really live life. And live life in spite of the less than ideal circumstances that every one of us has to face. And I'll talk about some of those circumstances in my life and how it is that we kind of overcome or get through, how it is that, at least in the Palin family, how the anchor can hold. There is a choice to truly live with hope as our Creator intended, with meaning and with purpose and with unlimited possibilities. And we are so blessed to live in the greatest country on this earth, where we have the freedom to choose that life. We live in America. In America, where we're free to make that choice. This is freedom. And gals, if you love your freedom, then acknowledge those who are protecting our freedoms every day, putting their lives on the line. Our United States military, America's greatest in uniform. United States military, if you love your freedom, you make a bet. So we're not going to squander what our sons and our daughters and our spouses, what our loved ones are willing to lay down their lives for us in order to protect us. So God, having a perfect plan for you, desiring for you, creating you to produce, to live life fully, asking you to make the choice whether you're going to do that or not. We're going to talk then about how to make up your mind to really live it out. And then when you make up your mind to choose life, to really live it, then you hang on to your hat because you're in for a wild ride. It's a wild, wonderful ride with many, many unexpected opportunities. So South Carolina's motto, breathe, hope. It reminds me that we're expected to seek greater, to work for greater, to achieve greater. Hope reminds us that the best is yet to come. So we can always be optimistic, to know that things will get better. And I'm going to talk to some of you specifically in here, not knowing your individual circumstances, but knowing that what God has for you is that hope that things are going to get better in your situation. Well, Todd and our daughter Willow, they're with me today. They're over there somewhere. They flew across the country. They flew across the country from freezing cold Alaska to this beautiful, warm state where we get to thaw out here on this wonderful St. Patrick's Day. And it's St. Patrick's Day. I wore my green necklace. Hopefully you wore a little bit of green. If not, beat your neighbor, like you did in school. St. Patrick's Day. I was looking at some of the meaning of it and remembering that the shamrock, the emblem that represents St. Patrick's Day, it started out as a representation of the Trinity with the three leaves, you know, God the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then I thought, well, it's no wonder that there's some cities across the nation that I've been reading about recently, and granted it's on the internet, so I don't know if it's all true, but reading that some towns want to change it from St. Patrick's Day to just, Green Day, because there's too much of that Christian foundation and some Catholicism that's in there. In our politically correct world that we are, heaven forbid that St. Patrick is actually celebrated with that emblem that represents the Trinity. But Todd and Willow, as we fly here, we leave that big cold, that big snow, that big wildlife that is Alaska. And my home state's motto, because it is a big wildlife up there, our home state's motto is similar to the Palmetto State's motto. Ours also articulates great optimism and incredible expectation. It's north to the future. And I've always figured, ever since a little kid, that it's no coincidence that my state's motto, too, allows us to have this optimism that better things are around the corner, the best is yet to come. I've always believed that in my 20 years of political career, too, from the local level to serving as an oil and gas energy regulator up to serving as the state's governor in the last frontier. That's what our state is known by. I believed it not a coincidence that our motto, too, represents hope and optimism for the future. So it makes no difference whether you live in sunny South Carolina or wintry Wasilla. You, too, can live in an environment of hope when you choose to live it out by faith. A scripture near and dear to my heart is Jeremiah 29:11, and it speaks to this. It says, meditate. I ask you to meditate on this so that you can build your faith, you can strengthen it. God's telling us, for I know the plans that I have for you. They are plans for good, to prosper you, not to harm you. Plans for a future, a good future, a hope in future. And that is good news, that word in Jeremiah. That's God's way of saying to you all, yes, you are extraordinary women, and it's no accident that you're here. And God says, I will show you that you are extraordinary, that you are unique, that the gifts that I've given you, he says, should be put to good use in order to encourage others. And it's not just because you've determined to call yourself extraordinary women in this conference. No, God says it's because that is what I have called you. I've ordained that for you. That's truth that you must grab hold of. And you must ask yourself, well, is God a liar? Is his word erroneous at all? No, and he makes no mistakes, and he does only have the best for us. And he just said he has good plans for you, so don't spend another minute wondering if there is purpose for your life, wondering if he's on your side. He is on your side. There's a place where you fit. Your gifts are needed. In this very tumultuous world that we live in, ladies, there's this world around us where there are so many lost people who have some skewed priorities and don't understand what the truth is and don't understand that they can choose to have that foundation, a relationship in Christ. People will want to know, where does your strength come from? Don't waste another moment wondering if God is on your side. You've asked him to adopt you. You've asked to become a child of God. And he's written you on the palm of his hand. And that's why I'm cool with writing the important things on the palm of my hand too. Despite what the media may say about it, these are the important, like Jeremiah 29:11. T-shirt event, or when I know I'm going to be throwing out a wave, I'll write a verse on my hand, just for the media's sake. It's like, made them look, you know? Then they have to go look it up, because they want to write something about it, like, what's she really trying to tell us? What's this covert message? So, you know, despite the media's mocking of it and the criticism, for any of you here today who may be a mole or an embed, and there's usually one or two, they'll have their flip phone camera thing, and they'll try to YouTube something that I'll say that they can take out of context and blow it up, you know, and criticize it. I say, well, yeah, try to criticize this then, Jeremiah 29:11, because it's true. I gotta mess with the media sometimes, bless their hearts. I just gotta do that. You know, today, ladies, too, I'm going to be preaching to myself up here because I need the encouragement as much as you do, and I need those reminders of what really matters and how to prioritize as much as anybody else. Because holy moly, the ride that Todd and I have been on, especially the last few years, oh man, if it were not for hope and truth and relationship in Jesus Christ, we would be begging to get off this tilt-a-whirl of a ride that we have been on. I don't know how people do it without faith in Christ. I don't know why they would want to. And if it weren't for prayer warriors interceding and creating a shield, a prayer shield around us, oh my gosh, you'd think you'd just be in a fetal position somewhere, covered up in the covers in our igloo up north and never want to, you know. If it really mattered, if you really cared about what, in my case, the lamestream, the liberal left media said about you. So it's that prayer shield, it's that intercession that gets us through, that hope and that truth in Jesus Christ that's shared with us. I have to ask for that fresh infilling of the Holy Spirit and that gift of hope and that strength and faith every single day. And again, I know that it's the intercession from many of you, from prayer warriors across the country, that keep me going. I bet you Candace Cameron and Kurt Cameron, others, they would say the same thing as they're out there in our culture, in pop culture, being salt and light. They're trying to affect positive change in this world. They need your prayers too. Those Christians in our country who are doing the best that they can to share the good word with others, they need your prayers. That's where we must be, especially when you realize, this Orwellian culture that we are in, where things it just seems like some things are upside down and what's right is wrong, what's accepted shouldn't be accepted, and vice versa. It's quite Orwellian. So we need that strength and faith. I need to ask for it as a gift from God every day. You need to ask for it in order for us to, as my dad would say, in order for us to never have to retreat, but instead we reload and we keep going and we keep moving forward. And we all need this. I want to share a couple stories with you about not retreating when life happens. Things that perhaps are perceived as less than ideal until you get through them, and then you see on the other side how God pulled you through it, made you stronger, and gave you opportunity to be able to connect with more people, relate to more people, and hopefully encourage more people and share the truth. First, know though that there are secular political phrases like hope and change that do little to inspire real hope. You may have heard some of that hopey, changey stuff, and I gotta ask you, how's that working out for you? So there's that hopey, changey, and then there is true hope, and you have to know where that comes from. Know that it's rooted in that relationship with Christ, with confidence in the plan, that there is a plan for you. What blessed assurance we have to know that there is real hope, and that brings real change for the real issues that really matter in our lives, in our country, in the four corners of our world. It's the kind of hope that keeps us going in the midst of challenges that may face you. Everyone has to face challenges. Everyone has their battles. Real hope is what we can embrace, though, especially when those less than ideal circumstances try to stare us down and try to sit us down and try to stop us from accomplishing what the Lord has for us. It can only come from, ultimately and irrevocably, it comes from choosing to put our faith in Christ. So declare that while you breathe, you will hope. And an even greater declaration to me is found in Hebrews 11:1. This explains, now faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the evidence of things not seen. And verse 6 says, see, without faith, it's impossible to please him. For you who come to God must believe that he is a rewarder of those who diligently seek him. Without it, you're not going to please him, and this highlights then that inextricable link between hope and faith. They're married. They're inseparable. That's powerful. This conference chose as its theme, passionate faith, which I absolutely love. See, faith is already powerful. Now we take it beyond that into something that is so passionate, it is so unstoppable. Passionate faith refuses to be denied. It never loses hope. As I say, it's linked, it's married. Speaking of being married, the last Christian women's speech that I gave way down south, I think I shared this at the last Extraordinary Women's Conference, I was heading into a drugstore to get a can of hairspray because down south, you women, I love that you wear your hair big down south. Up north, ours just gets all squished down in our fleece hats and our wool covers, so come down south to get to wear really big hair, and you all know too that the higher the hair, the closer to God. So I'm in Texas. I'm going to a drugstore to get a can of hairspray. This is a true story. I walk by the checkout line. I look up. I see this very awkward, big face on the cover of a tabloid magazine. I'm like, ooh, that's me. So I'm walking by it, and I refuse to give the store my $3.99. I'm not going to pay for it, but I look through it because on the cover it says Palin in the middle of a $20 million divorce. So I open up the magazine, and there are quotes from Todd in the magazine. At least there's quotation marks around supposedly things that he has said. But when you get into, I guess, the political or public arena, I guess your rights to privacy just are checked out the window because people can say whatever they want to say. They can even put your words in quotation marks, and there's nothing you can do about it. You can't sue them, because they have their freedom of expression and of speech, and you're a public figure, so they can say what they want. But anyway, I'm opening it up, and I'm like, quotes from my husband about supposedly we're going through this divorce. So I call Todd, and I say, Todd, I can't believe this, and I'm yakking at him and griping about it, like, of all things, I'm heading into this Christian women's speech. I'm supposed to be positive and optimistic and full of grace and love, and I have to look at this magazine, and I got to change my mindset here, and I'm just going on and on and on. I'm yakking about it, and finally Todd kind of gets a word in edgewise, and he says, what's it say? A $20 million divorce? He says, write me the check. But that earthly stuff, that's not the kind of marriage or passion that we're talking about here. No. A gift from God is this faith. more of it. I'm so thankful for that he says so graciously to us, if you don't have it in you, if it's not drummed up, if you're not feeling the love, ask for more and I'll fill you up with it. He also, though, then gives us the ability and the opportunities, oftentimes unexpected opportunities, to develop it into a faith that is passionate. And this matters in our very confused culture that we are in, with a ship of state that seems to be sinking in a very fast-moving, very volatile, tumultuous, end-of-era world that we are in. Faith is so important. It is so important that God says, hey, without it, you can't please me. So the reverse must be true then. The reverse must be true. When we choose passionate faith, it will bring delight to our Father then, and it can yield rewards and opportunities beyond our wildest dreams. Even in the midst of those very difficult, life-changing events that happen to all of us, we can cling to the truth that we'll get through it. He'll carry us through the fire, and again, I'm talking to some of you specifically out there. It will get better. Cling to it. For the record, despite of what some of those politicians and some of those media fools say about clinging to things, we don't cling to our religion because we're bitter. We cling to our God because there's nothing better. And along those same lines, when we're accused of clinging bitterly to our guns, I say, you betcha, we're clinging to our guns too, because here in America, we have a Second Amendment right, and we're allowed to do just that. And maybe down here in the lower 48 states, you guys do things a little bit differently, but up there, way up north, well, what we do is I sit up there between Canada and Russia, and yes, you can see Russia from Alaska. As we're way up north there, kind of, in some respects, living off the land still, we like to eat. So I say, we eat, therefore we hunt. So yes, we cling to our guns. And I say to Washington, and you can keep the change, we'll keep clinging to our guns and to our God and to our Constitution. And that is a big part of our lives up there. I like to feed my kids organic food. So when I get criticized from some of the granola crunchers there in liberal parts of the world, and they're saying, oh, how can she be out there killing Bambi, putting it in the freezer? I say, well, I want to feed my kids organic too. I just have to shoot dinner before we eat it. And their organic protein, it's wrapped in fur, not cellophane. But what's the difference? No, we love animals, and there is room for all of God's creatures right next to the mashed potatoes. Yeah, you're right. Gals, when you choose to walk by faith, don't think that your faith won't be tested, and don't think that you won't weaken sometimes or find that you have more questions than answers sometimes, but know that even in the midst of those tough times, those dry seasons, the anchor holds as we seek God's destiny. I know when I was a little girl, increasingly amazed and aware of the beauty and the majesty that is Alaska, I remember making a conscious decision to give my life to Christ. And it was at a summer Bible camp, an Assemblies of God Bible camp. I grew up assemblies, so all the rowdy stuff that happens at church, I'm used to all that. So summer camp, though, looking around at the majesty that is Alaska, the mountains, the pristine waters and air, the wildlife, thinking, wow, there is an omnipotent creator who made all this, who had a plan for this earth, and surely he would have a plan for a speck like me. And I decided way back then that I would put my life in his hands, that he could have it, he could lead. I'd be wise to do that, let him be in control. And of course, along the journey, I mess up all the time. I trust the wrong people, or don't trust the right people, or say the wrong thing, and we as fallible human beings, we mess up, but I know that I can have that confidence, that faith, that the path is there for me as I've given my life to Christ. as you too share that, knowing that He has a perfect plan for your life, ladies. He has a perfect plan. Maybe you didn't grow up in that great outdoors where you can't help but see the hand of God in that hiking and hunting and fishing and all that we do in Alaska. Maybe not with a dad like mine he's a science teacher, so he turned our living room into like a natural history museum, and my mom would always say, oh, this is the most unfeminine house in all of America. And when we've done a couple of documentaries, a couple of shows and some reality show segments, and they show my mom and dad's house, my mom's always so embarrassed because there's critters all over the walls and creatures, but that's how we grew up, though. And truly, in a lifestyle like that, you do see the hand of God in His wonderful creation. Maybe you didn't grow up with parents like mine who were coaches, where they had us convinced that things like training for marathons was family time, and that was fun, and chopping wood to keep the house warm every night, chopping wood, stacking wood. Oh, that was part of every teenager's healthy and fun social life. That's what we were told to do for fun. Maybe you had a much more conventional upbringing, but maybe too your plan from this day forward, it doesn't include maybe being tapped to go on a wild media adventure that lands every one of those little made-up blips on the cover of a National Enquirer magazine. Or perhaps your opportunities will be different than trying your best to serve on a national ticket for a political party. But know that God has still a plan for you. He's called you to do something even more significant. See, there is no big plan or small plan. There is no better plan or worse plan for any of us. The best that any of us can ever hope to accomplish is the plan, and it is for your life individually. See, He knows best. He wants to give you His best, and it is with the right plan He's laid out for you, no matter how simple or impossible that it can seem. You must pursue what you've been called to do. You must answer the call. As I wrote in Going Rogue, book I wrote, I said you have to pursue it, and then you look for signposts along the way to tell you that you're on that right path. And there will be assurances that you are on that right path. The signs will be there. You find what you're really interested in doing, what yates your crank, what can get you excited to get up in the morning and get going. You find that, and you have to know that God didn't put those desires in your heart to tease or frustrate you. He put those passions within you to give you direction, and He bridles those passions. When you're called to do what you're called to do, He's going to put fire in your belly to go accomplish it. And you can't be afraid of what others who don't have your best interests at heart, what they're going to say about it. They may accuse you of going rogue, like that's a bad thing. But so what? Those who have your best interests at heart will be there for you to encourage you along the way. I have faith that those around you that you're supposed to be surrounded with, God will speak to their heart too, to encourage you on the path. I tell you again, if I bothered to care or listen to what that radical left, to what the liberal media has to say about me and my faith or my record, I know I wouldn't be standing here today. You can't let them get you down. You can't be deterred by the trials, by the tribulations that you're sure to encounter. Those mean people, the mean people who just want you to sit down and shut up and not accomplish squat, you can't let them get you down. I read a good word from Victoria Bryson the other day. She said that the enemy, the naysayers, the critics, the haters, the enemy will try to use anyone or anything to cause you to drop your sword, to retreat. But realize it is only a ploy to keep you from stepping into the miraculous that God has for you. You must keep then forgiveness as a great weapon against the attacks. Okay, forgiveness is powerful, and it's a shield that will deflect many arrows. As Victoria wrote, see, the attack against you, it isn't about you. It's about the kingdom that you are a part of. So that acknowledgement that it's not about you, that you're part of something much greater than self, knowing that then, the attacks, they can seem relentless sometimes. but know that you have everything you need for victory. Sisters, you have the DNA of a champion living vibrantly inside of you. Don't be intimidated that they will try to reduce you and mock you and stop you because you've been adopted as a child of God. So whatever your David versus Goliath situation is, you've got the sling, you've got the 5 stones, and 4 of them are backup. David only needed 1, remember? Each of us has our own battles, each of us has that Goliath who's trying to stare us down, but you persevere. You dig deep, you reach up, you persevere. You can look around today and you can see in this arena so many different situations represented, different challenges, different backgrounds, married and single, and moms and grandmas and teachers and students, gals who are working inside the home, working inside and outside of the home, and all these women, all of you, extraordinary. We're different, but we are connected because we are women after all, and we are upheld by an extraordinary faith in He who expects us to get out there and do something, to not just be preaching to the choir or sitting back and complaining and maybe just occupying space, or Wall Street for that matter, which, no. While others are affecting culture, while others are getting things done and making things happen, no, we are absolutely not to just merely occupy space. We're created to make a difference in this world around us, in this world that needs you, in your family, in a business, a community, in our country, in the 4 corners of the world. And we fulfill that by maintaining a passionate faith no matter what's going on around you. You will always have challenges. I say to my kids all the time, sometimes, they tell me, I don't want to hear it. Sometimes I tell them, buck up or stay in the truck. God never promised us that it would be easy, did He? He told us He'd pull us through, though. The greater the challenge, though, gals, what you're going to find is the greater the Lord reveals Himself to us. Now, as for me, it's been, and Todd will agree, a real uneventful last few years, huh? I know. No, much has transpired. Sometimes when it rains, it pours, and all you have is your faith to cling to when one thing after another tries to stop you, tries to just face you down. And I've learned that there is purpose in it all. Now, the things that I go through politically, when only I'm involved, I think, okay, by the grace of God, I can handle it, no problem. But when my children become a target, well, like you mama grizzlies, the mama grizzly in me comes growling out too. You don't touch our cubs, right? That's why I think women should be in charge. Not to be sexist or anything here, but you don't touch our cubs. We are concerned about the future of our country and debt that we're incurring. We don't want our kids and our grandkids and our great-grandkids to have to pay the bills that we're incurring today. I think if more of our leaders had that kind of mentality, that mama grizzly type of mentality, we wouldn't be facing a lot of the national government problems that we're facing today, because we are concerned about the future for our cubs, for our kids and their kids. People have asked me, reporters have in the interviews, oh, how do you weather some of the storms? And I answer what, I don't know if they understand a word that I'm saying, but I say, hey, when you know that you know that you know where your strength comes from and what's really important in life, and then all the petty political and made-up media stuff on the periphery, that pales in comparison to what really matters and to have right priorities. I know that our stuff that we go through, it is nothing compared to those who are going through really tough trials, maybe a sick child, a critically ill parent, maybe losing someone in a war zone, trying to hold on to your job or your house, some of those very, very tough and real challenges out there. Our issues pale in comparison. I believe that ultimately, if you believe that he's got the whole world in his hands and he causes all things to work together for good, that enables us. I know it enables me to stay focused and to keep things in perspective, to keep things grounded. And I have to do that, especially in the arena that I am in the media and in politics, as I witness intimately every day a problem that I think is paramount. I think this problem really is in our society tearing at the fabric of our democracy. And instead of just complaining about this problem I'll share with you, I'm trying to do something about it. It is the lack of integrity in the world of journalism today. And this, as I say, it tears at the fabric of our democracy. I have a degree in journalism and communications. I started out as a sports reporter with such respect for the craft, such respect for reporting truth and, just learning the 5 W's of who, what, where, when, and why of a story. And that's what you reported. And it was all to be based on truth. I had such a respect for really basic human dignity that the written and spoken word would be able to illustrate. But in these years since studying it, I really witnessed the perversion of truth that's reflected in much of our media. And I've come to conclude, oh man, especially recently after reading some of the stuff that is supposedly reported about conservative women, about Christians in general, in the mainstream, I call them the mainstream media, I am more convinced than ever that we must do something about this problem, if not, reporters, out of respect for the craft, the vocation of journalism, if not out of respect for our First Amendment right to freedom of speech and freedom of the press, then at least out of respect for the military, again, our men and women in uniform fighting in war zones to protect our freedom of press, to protect that First Amendment right. And I say it bluntly. I ask reporters wherever I go, and oftentimes it is a takeaway in a speech or an event. I look right at them and I say, just quit making things up. That's all. That's pretty simple. And I call them out on it. But bottom line, and I say this, I share this because it's kind of an example of, instead of just griping about something, you really got to try to affect the change, do something about it. Bottom line, I can keep things in perspective because, well, God has given me some opportunities, some situations to keep me grounded. He's allowed me to just keep it real. I've had to rely on my faith to get me through some things in the press that I read about, and I'm beyond scratching my head going, who are they talking about? And then I realize they're talking about me and my family. Let me give you one example. Here I am as governor of the largest state in the union, very, very busy with ethics reform and oil and gas developments that we have going on in Alaska, and things are going well. We're working on both sides of the aisle to get things done, and I've got like 86% approval rating, and by the way, after I was tapped for VP, their approval ratings plummeted, believe me, but things are going well up there in Alaska, and I'm serving as the nation's, the president of the Interstate Oil and Gas Compact Commission, and working with other states on how we would get our nation energy independent. And there I am, first woman elected governor in Alaska, and youngest governor ever elected, and I'm pregnant. And yes, like Sarah of old, I laughed too when I found out that I was pregnant, because I was no spring chicken when I found out. In fact, I found out, I'm praying, I'm like, oh, yes, God, my name is Sarah, but my husband's not Abraham, he's God. But I'm pregnant, and the other kids are very busy with sports and school, and Todd's working up on the North Slope in the oil fields, and it's about a 1,600-mile commute from the North Slope oil fields down to the governor's mansion in Juneau, and got a very busy life, and here I am pregnant, and that's kind of exhibit A of maybe what would be perceived as less than ideal circumstances. And then I'm kind of getting my arms wrapped around that, knowing that some of the critics, I could hear them already going, yeah, we finally elect ourselves a woman governor, and like she goes off and gets herself pregnant. Some of those old sourdoughs up there in Alaska, I'm thinking that's what they're going to say, Kind of exhibit A, though, less than ideal circumstances, perhaps. Keep my arms wrapped around that. And then the doctor tells me, well, there's a chance that your child, your son, at only about 12 weeks along, that he'd have Down syndrome. And I called out to God again, because my little world kind of stopped spinning right then when she told me that. And I said, oh no, Lord, that's not part of the plan, because you always promised that you would never give us anything that we couldn't handle, and I don't think I could handle that. I don't think I am equipped to handle bringing into this world a child with special needs. I don't know if I'm compassionate enough. I don't know if I'm patient enough. I don't know if my heart can be wrapped around this. My sister has a child with autism, and in our family we've always said, oh, the Lord knows what he's doing. He gave Heather, the child with special needs, because she is the more nurturing of all the family. She's kind of like the Martha Stewart of all the girls in the family. God knew what he was doing, and I always thought deep down, he knows me well enough to know I don't know if I could handle this. But then when some further tests showed that our son would be born with Down syndrome, my world did stop spinning, and I didn't know how I would handle it. And again, I called out to the Lord saying, but you promised that you would only give us your best, and I'm always preaching to everybody else. He's never going to give you something that you can't handle. I don't know if I can handle this. Didn't know if I could, didn't know if I was equipped. And our doctor gave me information on babies with Down syndrome, and I read that 85 to 90% of babies diagnosed with Down syndrome, they're aborted. And that tells you, if only for a split second, it tells you, oh, these circumstances are beyond less than ideal. They must be impossible to handle. Otherwise, why would all these babies be taken? Why would they be aborted? Society's trying to tell us, I guess, that it's not fair to the child. If I've always been pro-life, and I've always counseled others to choose life, and God took me through a situation, though, where I believe he was whispering to me, are you going to walk the walk, or are you just going to talk the talk? And what the Lord was able to do in my heart, in my soul at that time, was strengthen my pro-life views, allow me to be more compassionate, and to be able to empathize with what other women would go through, if only in that split second where fear overtakes you and where you're getting a message from society that you're not capable of handling the situation that is before you, so perhaps you just want to make it disappear, make it go away, because you're not equipped to handle it. But God got us through that stage, and I'll tell you, it took me many, many, many months to get through that stage of being able to wrap my arms around it. When Todd finally returned home from work, and I told him that the baby had an extra chromosome, that he would be born with Down syndrome, and I said, Todd, are you asking why us? And Todd, he just looks at me and he says, why not us? And he just kind of brought me right back down to truth. That yes, God would be able to pull us through this. And I'll tell you what, the minute that Trig was born, the greatest manifestation of answered prayer you could ever imagine. God just filled me up with nothing but pure, overwhelming joy. He's changed our eyes. I know that when we look at our son, all we see is perfection. When we look at Trig, we say, okay, there's the world standards of perfection, and then there's God's standards. And at the end of the day, that's all that matters, his standards of perfection. And Trig is amazing. He is so amazing. And I have gone from being full of fear to being just so overwhelmed with joy. Can't imagine life without him. He is the light of our life. I've gone from fear to displaying the bumper sticker somebody sent me that said, my kid has more chromosomes than your kid. I know that the world maybe won't be competing for Trig, but he's my boy. I get him. See, what God told me was he does only have his best for us. He blesses us with what it is. Maybe we think we can't handle it because we don't know what a true gift is. He gave me Trig to show me what his true gift, his his true love is. And Trig, he does teach us more than we'll ever teach him. This child wakes up in the morning and he starts applauding the day. It's like he wakes up and rubs the blur and sleep out of his eyes and he starts applauding the day. And I look at him and I'm like, yes, Lord, that's what I want. I want more of that, which you gave him. He's a wonderful, wonderful. So anyway, back to the press though. Oh, and some of the things that they say about Trig. Oh, I tell you, I just want to punch these guys in the gut, though I know that is inciting violence, so I can't say that publicly, but some of these reporters, yeah. Here's the deal. I mentioned that it took me a long time to get my arms wrapped around being pregnant. It took me so long. I didn't tell anybody till I was 7 months. And I know that other people, around me, my staff, they were probably like, she's getting kind of chunky there, but we won't say anything. You're in Alaska, it's wintertime, you just pile on more fleece coats, it's kind of chilly in here. Put on another coat. Getting bigger. 7 months. And then Trig came really early. And I know it sounds crazy. I was out of town keynoting an oil and gas conference in Texas. Todd was with me. I did my speech, literally walked off the stage. Governor Rick Perry from Texas, he was MC, and he says, Governor Palin, don't tell us you're going to run off and have that baby right now, are you? And I'm like, I am. And I'm walking out the door, and I had the baby that night. But we made it home to Alaska to have the baby, because Todd says he loves Texas, but you can't have a fish picker born in Texas. Because it all happened kind of quickly, and I had just told people a couple weeks before that I was pregnant, and some of these reporters to this day say, wait a minute, she was only pregnant 2 weeks, there's no way this child is hers. And we call these people, we call them the Trig truthers, because they're still out there today reporting that Trig isn't my son. And that's why I'm beyond scratching my head as to what are these media folks thinking? What kind of fancy land do they live in? And that's just one thing that we go through in the press. And at first, it really did bother me that it's like, don't you dare make me prove it by showing you my stretch marks. You don't want to see that. But yes, he's my son and I gave birth to him. But, that was kind of an exhibit A. And then at that same time that I was pregnant, found out the baby would have Down syndrome, and very, very busy as the state's governor. And at that same time, my son, one too many hockey injuries. He hangs up his hockey skates, and he's 18 years old, and he enlists in the United States Army as an infantryman. And he gets sent to Iraq for his year of deployment. And that, of course, changed my perspective on national security and respect for military and what it is that our military men and women deserve, the benefits, the sacrifices they make, so the benefits that they earn, let's fulfill the promises that we make to them. So that's all going on in my life. That was kind of exhibit B, dealing with my firstborn, my son, going off to war. About that same time, exhibit C would be my teenage daughter comes to me, my good girl. My daughter, who's working very hard and playing basketball and youth group, she's, the governor's daughter, so she's so busy, I'm thinking she's too busy to be doing anything else. And she comes to me and to Todd, and she says that she's pregnant, teenage girl. And there again, our world stops spinning. And Bristol, though, has made the decision, of course, to be responsible for her son, not looking to others to take care of this beautiful, beautiful child Trip, but what she has gone through, and it was all played out on the cover of the National Enquirer because she was the governor's daughter going through this unwed teen pregnancy, as if she was the only girl in America to have ever gone through what she went through. And talk about the hypocrisy in the media in that situation. It's like these reporters in Hollywood and New York, they all went out and they got this morality transplant or something because, Bristol Palin, just this pregnant teenage daughter of a governor or what. But Bristol, she kept her head up and chose life for her son and Trip too, the most beautiful, precious gift. And then the things that Bristol has learned and been able to share with others, but what the media does to that then is they kind of accuse her of being a hypocrite because, well, she did what she's telling other girls they shouldn't do. And she's like, yeah, I am. As she's saying, I want to just save them from pain. Trip is the light of her life, but she's saying, I wish it would have happened 10 years from now. Once I was married, once I had education and some job experience under my belt, you know, and then have a child. And she says it's kind of like maybe a lung cancer patient who goes out there and tells people, beware of smoking. You don't want to smoke or you're going to end up in a situation that you didn't plan for. Well, Bristol's doing the same thing with her message, and it's a simple message. She's not trying to institute some kind of sex ed policy for the rest of the country. She's just telling teen girls, she's saying, if you don't want to get pregnant, there's only one surefire way to make sure you don't get pregnant, and that's to not have sex before you're married. And she's telling girls this. And she's taken a lot of heat for telling girls this. And Bristol, I mean, what she went through and even telling us, she wrote a book called Not Afraid of Life. And in that, I read a paragraph of, and I stopped and I said, Bristol, is this true? She said, you gals who have babies know how hellish labor is, so painful. She said, telling my mom and dad that I was pregnant was more painful than going through labor. I'm like, oh, bless her heart. But, you know, she knew that we would be disappointed because her adolescence was prematurely cut short because of a decision that she made, but things have turned out well, and Bristol has been one to try to express to others that you learn your lessons, God brings you through, and then you're in a circumstances around you where you can help encourage others. Now, around all that time, though, and this is all a really short period of time where it's kind of like one thing after another where our little world would stop spinning for a minute or two. Around that time, I get a phone call asking if I'd accept the nomination for Vice President of the United States of America, and I say, well, nothing else going on? Sure, let's go. You betcha, let's go. So we're out there on the campaign trail, and, you know, I'm thinking, okay, there's pieces of this puzzle that are coming together that have allowed us to be able to connect to more Americans and what it is that they go through with challenges, and perhaps some encouragement that they want as they ask us, how does your anchor hold? We're going to be out there telling them about our faith. Yes, there were people on the campaign trail. One of the very first interviews that my mom and dad gave after I was selected, some reporters ran up to Alaska and just inundated our little tiny town of Wasilla, inundated. They're on my parents' lawn and on their doorstep, and my dad's given this interview, and my mom's given an interview to big media outlets, and a guy on our campaign staff said, you need to call your parents and tell them to quit talking about God and quit talking about hunting because nobody else understands this stuff. And I'm like, but that's who we are. That's who we are. Well, on the campaign trail, one night we're heading out there on the national stage. 44 million people are going to be watching the VP debate. I'm going to be debating Senator Joe Biden. And like with anything big in life, you know, you got to pray about it. You want divine inspiration, you want favor, you want grace before you tackle what's in front of you. So before I go out there on stage, as the cameras roll, I got to pray about this, and I got to find somebody because, you know, where two or more are gathered. So I'm looking for somebody to pray with. Nobody on the campaign staff seemed real gung-ho about joining hands and praying, but Piper, my little girl Piper, she was there. She was in a corner of a green room. So I go over to Piper and I said, Piper, let's pray together because this is big. It's a debate. It's a competition. And I want to win. You know, God says we can pray for victory. I said, and trying to keep it simple for Piper, I said, pray that I win. Pray that God speaks right through me. And she says, God speaking through you? That'd be cheating. Oh, we had such wonderful experiences in those weeks. And really quickly back to Bristol, I mentioned her. You want to hear how God literally exchanges beauty for ashes? How he turns mourning into dancing with the stars? Let me tell you about Bristol. She gets a call from the producers of Dancing with the Stars, and they say, Bristol, you want to be on our show? She hangs up the phone. She tells me about the call. I said, because Bristol's like me. kind of a jock, you know, snow machining and, you know, skating out on the ice and stuff, but never dancing before. I said, what did you tell these producers? And she said, I told them, well, I don't dance and I'm not a star, so sure, I'll go on Dancing with the Stars. Oh, yeah. So she loaded up the truck and she moved to Beverly Hills. She did, literally. She drove her truck down to Beverly Hills, and I'm warning her, I'm like, man, Bristol, because you want to protect your cubs, you know, it's like, Bristol, the critics are going to be mean, you know, the haters are out there, and she says, yeah, Mom, the haters are going to hate, the critics are going to criticize, so you might as well dance. I'm like, right on, that's a life lesson. And Bristol, having started ground zero, never danced a day in her life, like she said on Jay Leno one night, he said, oh, surely you've danced before, you went to the prom, right? She says, no, I was pregnant. She made it all the way to the finals, and that was cool. But even that, with the media, they accused her of cheating. I'm like, how do you cheat in Dancing with the Stars? You either get the steps down or not, right? But God turned her situation into a wonderful situation for her son Tripp. And now Bristol and Willow and her son Tripp, they're filming some episodes for a show to show how single motherhood really is, and it's not glamorous and it's not fun. And like Bristol says, you know, a baby isn't an accessory on your hip. It's a lot of work and a lot of sacrifices. She kind of has no social life. And she's showing these in documenting some episodes of this, and it's called Life's a Trip. And Bristol, she's making it fun, but what she wants to show other girls, young girls, is don't emulate this, don't strive for this, because there are some shows out there that unfortunately I think try to show that it is something that you would strive for. Bringing a child into the world when you're not quite prepared for it and it's not probably in the plan. So that's what Bristol is up to. But many Christians like Candace Cameron, like Kirk Cameron, these people are out there in pop culture understanding that that is where young people are influenced, is pop culture. Christians need to be there. They need to be salt and light. They need to be showing some encouragement, encouraging other young people to look up for guidance. They and their stories need to be motivated. We need to hear them instead of mocking them and ridiculing them and trying to shoo them out of society. They need to be heard because they're trying to help other people avoid pain. So Bristol, like others, is offering her perspective based on what her experience has taught her. She and I, we want others to know that there is hope, that things do get better. Too many women today, as I say, they're duped into believing that they're not strong enough or smart enough, they're not man enough, frankly, to handle less than ideal circumstances. They don't understand, like you do, that they are created to be extraordinary women. They need to come to this conference and they need to get some word from the Clintons and from others to understand the extraordinary makeup that upholds them based on their Creator, knowing that with faith, nothing is impossible. And that the Lord really is a rewarder of those who will diligently seek Him and serve Him. So I can go on from Exhibit A, B, C, D, all the way to Z, just like you could with the stories, the situations that shape us, that teach us through the school of hard knocks, that provide lessons for others. I want you to embrace the story that is yours and know that it can make a positive difference in the world around you, that God would want you to know that you are uniquely created, that you have gifts that only you have been given. Your story may not be shared behind the pulpit. It may not be shared at a press conference. Maybe it's shared in a parking lot, or at a PTA meeting, or at your daughter's hockey practice. Maybe just being able to talk to somebody one-on-one, helping them, encouraging them, telling about that possible relationship in Jesus Christ that will change their lives, letting them know what really matters. You talk to them like that one-on-one and you will change their lives. Wherever you are, whatever your story is, determining it and determining that you are important, that you have that important story, that testimony. It is important because the God of this universe entrusted you with it. No one else. He entrusted you to make a difference. And it's for such a time as this, in this very, very tumultuous world that we are in. By faith in God, embrace it. And for the love of God, please share it. You're free in America to do just that. Look at the persecution in other countries of Christians. They can't get out there and share our faith. Let's not squander the freedom that we have to share our faith. I don't care what the media is going to say about me, even here today talking to you about a relationship in Christ. We are free in America to share it. We're blessed to live in a country with a foundation of freedom. It's a nation that is destined with purpose. We have great purpose in America. And Todd and I, we've had awesome opportunity to travel all around this country, many parts of the world. As we travel within the borders of our nation, though, especially many parts of America, we are meeting great people, and we are finding it impossible to see that people are really, really hurting out there. People are hurting across America. It's impossible not to notice. With the unemployment numbers being so high and housing markets in the tank, so much uncertainty in our businesses, and energy prices that are going to be off the charts. There are war-weary families all over this nation wondering, are these endless, unfocused, unwinnable wars? What are we doing in these other lands? We want to know that there are goals, that there is victory, that there is light at the end of the tunnel for our military. We are watching, Todd and I, firsthand, people who are fighting so hard just to take care of their families and to remain encouraged. Too many people in America are just, man, their morale is really, really low right now. You know why that is? It's because the foundation of our country is under attack. Our liberties are at risk. And we have enormous mind-boggling debt problems that kind of bury us and stifle our economy and stifle the entrepreneurial spirit in our country. And we have to acknowledge that what government's doing about this debt crisis is they're just piling on more debt. They have a spending problem, and they're creating more and more problems. And unless we start doing something about it, we will be an insolvent, we will be a bankrupt country. And we're witnessing things like crony capitalism and corruption that really it disgraces our capital. America is better than that. We're dangerously reliant on foreign sources of energy. And this is a specific thing that I know much about, and I certainly want to help affect change here. Instead of tapping our own God-given natural resources that He placed underfoot in America today, we're being threatened, our national security and our economy, our solvency, our sovereignty, by being reliant on other countries to produce energy for us. These are countries that use energy as a weapon against us and our ally Israel. Not developing our own abundant God-given resources, it defies common sense, and it does put us at risk, and it does kill jobs. And here again, South Carolinians, you know this, again, your state motto is, while I breathe, I hope. You know, your other state motto, it happens to be prepared in mind and resources. I think that's providential too. You can tweak that a little bit for the greater U.S. and realize that it can be said to use our minds, develop our resources, and leadership does need to use its mind and then act on the resources that we've been blessed with. Part of passionate faith involves acting, doing something with what God has provided us. We have to act. We have to move. God doesn't drive parked cars. He expects us to get out there and do something with what He has given us, rather than asking others to do it for us. We're given abundant natural resources. Got to do something with them. Remember when God asked Moses, Moses, what do you have in your hand? And then God used what Moses had in his hand. Could He be saying to us, America, what do you have in your land? Use it responsibly. I gave it to you. Why are we relying on others to provide for us what God has already provided to us? Relying on dictators and tyrants and regimes elsewhere, that's not faith. That's not faith and that's not hope. It's unwise and it's destructive, and it does stifle our country. And it's why I'll keep saying drill, baby, drill, until somebody will start listening from up on high. Drill, baby, drill, because relying on other countries, again, using energy as a weapon against us, against Israel, against our allies. That is part of some kind of fundamental transformation of America that I can't stand for. We don't need a fundamental transformation of America. We need a fundamental restoration of all that is good and free and strong in America that is based on hard work, a Judeo-Christian ethic, tradition that our founders created for us. The vast majority of Americans of all backgrounds, of all demographics, they do agree that God has shed His grace on the America. We were set apart generations ago. We were not to be just another nation. We were to be a beacon of hope, a city that is set on a hill, as Ronald Reagan used to speak of, for the rest of the world to see and wish to emulate when we do things right. We were not just another nation. We would be exceptional. Our founders established America on Judeo-Christian principles. The Old and the New Testament of God's Word is interwoven throughout our entire existence. We must reject any attempt to erode that foundation. And we must reject any attempt to rewrite that aspect of our history. Remember, in the building of our nation, we espoused faith first. Faith in someone greater. That someone greater was God. Someone greater than self. In our Declaration of Independence, it states that we hold these truths to be self-evident. That all men are created equal and that are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. See, we began in faith in someone, God, and He gave us our rights. Government didn't. Now, on top of our foundation of faith in someone is a foundation in faith in something. And that something is liberty. It's amazing, though. What our founders viewed as self-evident has become less and less evident to people who believe that government, politicians, that they have the authority to limit our beliefs and to control our conscience. That wasn't our founders' intentions. And it took faith on their part, on the founders' part, to embark on this whole idea of America. And America is still synonymous with freedom. And as faith is bound to hope, so America is bound to freedom. Friends, it's going to take faith to preserve this nation. And preserve it we will, because we're determined not to squander all that we have been given. So this theme of faith, whether we're contemplating our personal or our national or even our global problems that are in front of us, the solutions, as we contemplate these problems, the solution is the same. It's that faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. We don't know what the future holds, but we can know that faith is substance. It is real. It will not fail, which means you will not fail. History, our own and our nation's, proves that out. Let me leave you with this, because we got to be real. And there are times when we just don't feel any passion at all. You know, then what do? How do you drum it up? How do you feel when you're feeling empty? And no doubt there are times when you're tempted to just feel down. How do you drum it up? Well, have you ever been somewhere when it was time to eat? I know backstage in the green room, this happened to me just an hour ago. Maybe it's time for you at home, though, to cook something. You plan to cook, it's your turn, or maybe you make what you make best, and that's reservations. You're ready to go eat. But you just don't feel it. You're not hungry. You're no appetite. And then, strangely though, as happened to me in the green room when somebody walked by with a cart of Chick-fil-A. We don't have that up in Alaska. You guys have it here, and oh my goodness, it smelled so good. Strangely, as the food is being prepared though, as it comes closer and closer to you, pretty soon that aroma arises and your senses kind of perk up, and all of a sudden your stomach starts churning and your mouth waters, And you start feeling it. You start feeling downright hungry, just like happened to me back then. I didn't think I was hungry until I got around that food. See, often what it takes to spark the hunger is the presence of food. And that is like our faith. Yes, we can lose the fire in our belly, the passionate faith that we need to see us through, that God expects us to have, and He expects if we don't have it, that we better ask for more of it. Remember, the key to catching on fire is being around fire. Spending time in God's Word. This is how you drum it up. Spending time with Him, in His presence. Hanging out with others who want to spend time in His presence. That's key to walking out the destiny that God has for you. With the ebbs and the flows and the questions and the answers, I know that as God has allowed me to take an amazing journey, I have come to see each situation around me as being kind of put together as part of the puzzle. Same with you. Purpose, with a plan for your life. Know that you have been called for such a time as this. Know that you have been called to make a difference in this tumultuous world that we are in. Know that there will be challenge after challenge. You'll have your exhibits A through Z, but you'll come through victoriously because you decided to walk by faith, passionate faith. And just watch as you, extraordinary women, as you share your story of passionate faith, others will be changed. They'll be blessed as their faith, it ignites. So I say, as Bristol would say, the critics are going to criticize anyway, you might as well dance. Say, God bless you, extraordinary women, and God